This episode is sponsored by M3 Virtual Accounting. Molly Morris will help you set up your books for any virtual business or for your own personal finances. She has helped me so much with Unspoiled, and I wish that I had found her and hired her sooner. If you're interested in getting some help so that you don't have to scramble at tax time next year, go to m3virtualaccounting.com for a free consultation and tell her I sent you.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, a song of ice and fire to the co-host switcheroo, the rereading Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and including kitten mews in the background.
Mm-hmm.
In this episode, we're covering A Dance with Dragons, Chapter 60 and 61, The Spurned Suitor, and The Griffin Reborn. These chapters, well, we're still dealing with Quentyn trying to figure out what the hell to do with himself. Daenerys has disappeared. And then we go to Griffin's Roost, and there's a whole battle happening. Forgot about these people. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
All right. So, Quentin's chapter is actually quite short. Thankfully.
Yeah.
The whole thing with him and it just being sort of at loose ends right now is, it's just a little frustrating for me. How did you feel about it?
I felt like this was like much ado about nothing. You know, there's really not a lot. I mean, it ends with like something that could be very potentially interesting. The whole like, you know, I want to steal a dragon. But honestly, do I feel like you're going to have any success in this endeavor? I really don't.
Yeah, it just feels, it's just, you know, it's desperate. It's a desperate plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And I feel bad for old Quentyn, you know?
Same.
He had this grand mission, super secret, you know, training for it forever. Was going to solve a lot of problems, going to, you know, marry the Silver Queen and get dragons and, you know, rule the realm. Like, he had some big plans and went through a lot of trouble to get to the other side of the world. And then a bitch just flew away on a dragon.
Yep.
You know, got married, you know, married someone else, turned him down to his face. I love when they're like, she laughed in your face, and he's like, she didn't laugh.
Bless him. It's almost like he's defending her character, though, which I do kind of like. That he's like, no, you know what? She was perfectly decent. Don't you talk like that about my still future wife.
Yeah. And I love, too, that it's, like, internal. He's thinking it to himself, so he's not even actively defending her. He's just, like... But, so, yeah, so really what we had... what he decides to do, really, is I'm going to go back to the madman that I betrayed, who has a reputation for being less than hospitable to people who betray him, and I'm going to offer him literally nothing but my word.
Correct. That's exactly
right. Like, and the Tattered Prince, you know, not for nothing, responds correctly, if you ask me. You know,
agree.
His sort of
his
the rice
whole vibe is so immaculate. To me.
Yes. Agreed. I also love too. They do that. This is a running. I feel like at this point it's a gag. It's a trope, but it's just done so often and in so many properties. They pull the but I didn't bring an extra man for Pretty Maris is a woman. Ha ha! I gotcha. You know what I mean? Like that fucking. You said no man. I, sir, am not a man. You know, from Lord of the Rings. Right. Like it's like we're still doing this. Like everybody, calm down.
I do enjoy him constantly calling her like sweetling and things like this. Like. And her just, I imagine, standing there with this completely impassive expression. And when he's like, she's a woman, go ahead and open your vest and show him. And I imagine her just literally not moving a muscle and just giving him like a tired look like, come on, dude.
Like, you do this every time. Aren't you tired of this joke?
But yeah, okay. So like, I'm going to back up because I really do want to, read some of his dialogue word for word because he just entertains me so much. We start off with the conversation between Drinkwater and Quentyn and what's the name? Archibald, regarding what they're going to do. And Garrus is just like, we should bail, man. Like, we should really go. Fucking Barristan Selmy tells you to leave. You leave. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that there was at least one person who was like, yeah, how about we just do what we're told? But Quentyn keeps imagining what it would be like to go home having failed this mission.
Yeah.
And he cannot countenance that. It's just too bleak. Everybody making jokes at his expense, the disappointment of his father.
He can't face the failure of it. Like, just can't do it. He would rather stay and have this sort of cockamamie plan than just go home and admit that his mission failed, that he was not successful, and face his father and his father's disappointment. And that's some real shit, y'all. Like, nobody, like failure is, nobody enjoys it. And I don't care how many self-help books you read about how it can, build character and how to bounce back from it and blah, 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 blah. In the moment when you're faced with your own, that shit is highly unpleasant. And we will go to great lengths to mitigate it, to try to save the day, to switch the circumstances around, anything to not have to admit that we failed at a thing. And that's where Quentyn is right now. Quentyn is like, what is that expression? You're just throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks, Mm-hmm. That's where we are with Quentyn. And this is what he's throwing up against the wall today.
Yeah, the other thing that he's thinking about is how Lord Ironwood, who he calls like his second father, sent his son with Quentyn, and his son is dead. And so not only is he a failure, but he's coming back having lost people that mattered and still failing. Yeah. Which is just really, that is brutal. Like,
I love when he says or thinks to himself, my dad's not going to say anything to my face about being, he's not going to rebuke me or punish me or anything like that. But the disappointment would be there in his eyes.
Yeah.
So he's not even afraid of like getting berated or anything, but just facing his father. And then it says, and his sister would be scornful, and the sand snakes would mock him with smiles sharp as swords.
And they would too.
They absolutely would.
Absolutely. So yeah, he's like setting up this meeting, and they have to set it up by like bribing this guy to even go talk to what's his face, Tattered Prince. And he's like, the way that they try and dictate the terms, and he's like, tell him he can only bring 2 men. And I was just sort of like, yeah, I don't see that you are in any position to tell him how many people he gets to bring with him, but I guess you could try. So they go to this meeting, and on the way, they're discussing this overall situation. I love that fucking Archibald just calls everybody
Harzo. Listen. You guys.
His name was Hargaz. Hizdar, Humzum, Hagnag. What does it matter? I call them all Harzu. Oh, this is really white shit here. Listen, it really was.
Y'all know I am out in these George Martin streets struggling with these names. So I was like, that is genius.
Even if the queen returns, she'll still be married. Not if I give King Harzu a little smack with my hammer, suggested the big man. Hizdar, said Quentyn. His name is Hizdar. One kiss from my hammer, and no one will care what his name was. Oh, God.
You gotta appreciate that energy, though. You have to have one person in your friend group who's, like, always on that type of time.
Very much.
And so I appreciate him.
And he thinks to himself, Quentyn, they do not see. The road leads through her, not to her. Daenerys is the means to the prize, not the prize itself. And I love that he has this firmly in mind, because it would be very easy to get sidetracked and really feel like she's the goal.
Yeah.
Not that it really seems to be doing him any good, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I appreciate that he seems very focused here, and has managed to maintain that even when everything seems to be going wrong.
His friends, less impressed. He starts talking about the conversation he had with Daenerys and about how, like, you know, the dragon has 3 heads, marriage need not be the end of all your hopes. She basically admitted that I have Targaryen blood in me. And Garrus is just like, fuck your lineage.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, like, he says you can't tame a dragon with a history lesson. But Brown Ben Plum was liked by her dragon. You know, there is something to this part with the blood.
Right.
I don't know that it's the sort of thing that, you know, like, it's one thing for your dragons to just deal well with you when you're in the room with their mother talking versus by yourself coming into a place. So it may just be a real different context, and that changes stuff. But, and I think that Austin mentions this in his Austin's info corner. Yeah, here it is. He says Brown Ben's ancestry is even further back, like his connection with the Targaryens, than Quentyn's is. So if the dragons liked Ben, and Quentyn's got probably like more Targaryen blood in him than Ben, he may have a better chance, but I don't know how much of a chance Ben would have either.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how much of a chance anybody has when Daenerys is not at least in proximity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting question. Like, if they get to her dragons that are left and that are still chained, like, how does that go for him? I guess, you know, I mean, I don't know if we see that or not, but that really is, he is clearly betting on that, the fact that he will be able to tame a dragon, and feels very confident in that. And I am always, like, low-key surprised that anybody is confident in their ability to tame a dragon. Whenever the conversation comes up, because all I can think of is, like, 4 years ago, they didn't even exist.
Yeah.
And now everybody's out here, like, the idea of having Targaryen blood is, like, gospel now, and everybody is converted, and everybody believes in it. And like, you know, like 4 years ago, you might as well have been telling somebody that you had baby unicorns.
Yes.
So,
yeah, just acting like you believed that the dragons were real would be enough to get you some ridicule. It's a sort of, have you seen these, like art and craft videos where somebody is, like, doing this incredible piece of artwork, and then somebody comments, my toxic trait is thinking that I can also do this.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what this is giving right now. Like, because people in videos, they make things look so easy because it's all, first of all, it's all sped up. So it just seems like it took no time at all. And then they always have all the equipment that they need. And so things that are actually pretty hard are a little easier because they're prepared, and also they are an expert in the thing. And so it really can. I have this struggle with somebody who loves hobbies and making crafts and art and stuff. I will have so many moments of watching somebody make something in a video and be like, ooh, maybe I should get into this. Right. And then I have to stop and be like, girl, look at the sheer amount of like machinery that they used in this video. That's like $1,500 minimum. Just start. I'm talking about like, maybe I should start glass blowing. Like this kind of thing.
It's a comment I see. I watch a lot of dance videos, and that's a common comment on those as well. Yeah. It's, basically being like, my toxic trait is thinking this is what I look like when I'm dancing in my bedroom at night, or whatever. Like, you just get up there and you start doing your thing, and it looks effortless because you are a fucking professional and you're talented and you put unimaginable amount of hours into your craft, and that's why it looks so easy when you're up there doing it. And I, would break my hip, before I even got fully off the couch. So, we are not the same.
Oh, God. Yeah. So they come to this meeting, and this dude, I just love him so much. So, Quentyn saw no sign of the men they had come to meet. Then a door he had not seen before swung open, and an old woman emerged, a shriveled thing in a dark red tokar fringed with tiny golden skulls. And she leads them down, and the tattered prince is at this table. Quentyn says, "You look different without your cloak. My ragged raiment? A poor thing, yet those tatters fill my foes with fear. And on the battlefield, the sight of my rags blowing in the wind emboldens my men more than any banner. And if I want to move unseen, I need only slip it off to become plain and unremarkable."
It's fucking Damon in that cloak.
Oh my God. It's so funny how often, like, there are... I'm covering so many things for Spoil Me, and I've had a couple like people be like, I picture Damon for this particular character. He comes up so much. Like, he's just got such a distinctive look. It's really lodged in our collective consciousness. So, yeah, he's like, look, you wanted to meet me, and yeah, I brought an extra person, but I'm here, which is more than you deserve. Let's be honest. And he says, like, your name is Quentyn? I think you're really just much more of a frog. That suits you a lot better.
He says that shit right to his face. Frog suits you better. And then it's like, and it's not my custom to drink with liars and deserters, but you made me curious, so I'll have a drink. And Quentyn is like, assessing the situation and thinking to himself, like, if I say one wrong word, this is all going to escalate very, very quickly. So I gotta figure out, I have to tread very carefully. So the first thing he does is ask for a pardon for the lies, which I asked your pardon for our deception, which is such a It's so passive. It's so passive. Yes, that's the passive voice. Like, I'm sorry that I lied to you. That's how you say that.
Yep. Instead of, I'm sorry for what happened.
Yeah, I'm sorry if what I said upset you.
Yep.
That's my favorite apology. I'm sorry if what I did or said upset you, or you found it offensive, or whatever. Yeah. Fuck out of here.
I'm sure you are very sorry that I found it offensive. So little, dig about Daenerys, which we've already mentioned. We came too late. A pity you did not desert me sooner. Oh, God, that cracked me up so bad. Just like, oh, sweetie, you were too late. That's so sad for you. My God, this dude.
My God. When he talks about this bit, where he says, Quentyn is like, I had a marriage pact. And the Tatler Prince is like, yeah, I heard. And then when she saw your little scrap of paper, she just fell right into your arms, right? That's how that happened, right? Mm-hmm. And Maris is like, nope.
Nah.
And then Tatler Prince is like, oh, right. Your bride flew off on a dragon. Well, when she gets back, you be sure to invite us to the wedding.
This fucking dude.
And then, he just, keeps going. He's like, I do love a Westerosi wedding. But, oh, wait. I think your Dragon Queen has already married somebody, right? This, I would have had to get up and walk away. I would have had to leave. I don't think I could have just sat there for this.
Yeah, agree. It's very it's some of the best reading. When he says, "Do you not desert?" It's too bad you didn't desert me sooner. And then, oh, no wedding. Is that why you've come hopping back to me, Prince Frog? Have my 3 brave Dornish lads decided to honor their contracts?
Oh my God!
No. How vexing!
My God!
How vexing got me so bad. It's just this very mild sort of of course I know that's not what you're doing here.
Sure.
I have to point out the fact that you're asking for my help while telling me to my face that you don't respect the bond that, the fucking gall. Truly.
Yeah. And Quentyn, to his credit, or maybe his discredit, I'm not really sure where I fall just yet.
It's hard to know, right?
Right?
Yeah.
But he keeps pushing along. And so he's like, Yunzak is dead. This is being said with this is going to change the whole tenor of the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And Tatler Prince is like, bitch, that's old news. I saw him die. What are you talking about? He says ancient tidings, which I really love the way you love how vexing. Something about ancient tidings. And if I could find a way to make that a part of my regular everyday speech, because I just feel like that is devastating. If someone is coming to tell you some shit, they really think they about to blow your whole shit up, rock your whole world. And you're just like, oh, ancient tidings.
I like the idea of it being just what you respond to somebody who's got real stale memes. Shit they're sending you they think is really funny, and you're like, this is literally 2 years old. Stale tidings. Do better. So, let's see. The Council of Masters has been unable to agree on a new commander. Yezen Zokagaz had the most support, but now he's died as well. The Wise Masters are rotating the supreme command amongst themselves. Today our leader is the one your friends in the ranks dubbed the Drunken Conqueror. On the morrow it will be Lord Wobblecheeks. The rabbit, said Maris. Wobblecheeks was yesterday. I stand corrected, my sweetling. Our youngish friends were kind enough to provide us with a chart. I must strive to be more assiduous about consulting it.
This
performance. I cannot.
10 across the boards. It is just chef's kiss, this whole thing. It's so petty and just done with such an air of, I am only here for the lulz, right? Mm-hmm. I'm only here because I was so amused that you would fucking dare to even want to meet with me, that I couldn't resist coming to see with my own 2 eyes what kind of bullshit you are actually on. Like you know what I mean? Like sometimes you just gotta see shit for yourself because you can't even believe it. Like when he gets the invitation, he has to have been like, I know this motherfucker is not asking. What? Am I reading this right? Like he had to show the note to 2 or 3 people to make sure he wasn't fucked up, you know?
I like the idea that he holds it up in front of them and they just look at him and he's like, oh yeah, you can't.
That's right.
If you could, you would be outraged.
You're a literate asshole. That's why I keep you around. But yeah, and it's just got like he's here, that expression, at his own pleasure, right? Mm-hmm. He is here because he decided to be here. And that's it. There's like no real leverage that Quentyn has at all. And the Tattered Prince is just relishing in the fact that this kid doesn't really have anything really to offer him, it would seem. He just wants to see with his own 2 eyes the kid who had the fucking stones to ask for this meeting. And it is not looking good for our boy Quentyn.
No.
It's not looking good. And this is when, what he's trying to do here is basically be like, the person that you signed a contract with is dead now. Like, and the war is going to be over. There's not going to be any city for you to sack. There's going to be no plunder, no slaughter. Like, you're done here. So, why don't you come and work for me? I got a place you can sack. I got some shit you can plunder. You know, ride for me, which is really crazy work to be asking somebody that you did this to come and work for you. And then the fucking icing. I got nothing to pay you with. I got no money. I got nothing but my word, which I have already broken. BTW.
Yeah, that's basically like, so the Tattered Prince finished his wine, turned the cup over, and set it down between them. So, let me see if I understand. A proven liar and oath breaker wishes to contract with us and pay in promises. And for what services? I wonder. Are my windblown to smash the Yunkai and sack the Yellow City, defeat a Dothraki Khalasar in the field, escort you home to your father? Or will you be content if we deliver Queen Daenerys to your bed wet and willing? Tell me, true Prince Frog, what would you have of me and mine? I need you to help me steal a dragon. How the corpse killer chuckled. Pretty Maris curled her lip in a half smile. Denzo Don whistled. The Tattered Prince only leaned back on his stool and said, "Double does not pay for dragons, Princeling. Even a frog should know that much. Dragons come dear, and men who pay in promises should at least have the sense to promise more."
Devastating.
"If you want me to triple what I want," said the Tattered Prince, "is Pentos." And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. How are you gonna promise him that, Quentyn? Like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? What do you say to that?
Oh, yeah. This is just. I loved him so much. I really, really loved him so much. And I want to mention that Austin has a reminder here. The Tattered Prince was Prince of Pentos, who was elected and sacrificed if the magisters of the city felt the need to appease the gods, but he ran away before he could be executed.
Right. So he wants what in his mind is his. Everybody wants to go back home. You know what? I'm glad Austin mentioned that, because when that dovetails nicely into Griffin's little chapter, which is the same sort of like going back to take what's yours, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And being like the rightful ruler of a given area, a seat, a city, a country, whatever. Which is fascinating to me. The idea of the right to rule which could be like an entirely different podcast. Like what makes you the rightful ruler of any given place? Oh, well, because my people were here first. Were they though? Usually not. But your people showed up and were stronger than whoever was there first and usually pushed them out. And now you've claimed this area as your rightful, area. And then somebody that's stronger than you and yours shows up and take it. And you would think the logic of the person who's deposed would be like, well, that's how that shit goes. That's how I got it. Yep. So now it's theirs. But they never think of it that way. They always think, it's still mine. It's still
how
mine.
Dare they use their superior strength to question me?
Right? Like, y'all did the same exact shit, though. How do you think you got it in the first place? Mm-hmm. But yeah, the rules never really apply in reverse, do they? So. It ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun.
All right, so then we go into the Griffin Reborn. And it's, like we've mentioned already, Jon Connington taking back his ancestral seat. And it's so incredibly easy that everybody is sort of flummoxed. He is going into this thinking he's going to lose 100 men. And he loses 4. Which is just embarrassing, honestly. Like, jeez. I get that they had the element of surprise, but even so, like...
Right.
That's just a very poor showing. And...
It was over within minutes.
Yeah. And there's a note here from Austin. It annoys me how clear it would be if Dany made her way to Westeros, how easy her invasion could go. The Tyrells are pissed at the Lannisters. The Stormlands and Riverlands are weak and hate the Lannisters. Dorne is willing to throw themselves behind a Targaryen. Look how well this initial invasion is going. And Griff doesn't even have dragons.
It's a good point.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Maybe, I'm about to become a George Martin apologist for like 2 seconds. Y'all bear with me. Maybe, and this is probably old news to y'all. I'm new here. We spend so much time getting Daenerys in this quagmire of the East and Marine and the slave cities because really, if she just goes back west, it is over in a day or two.
So you mean like he had to draw that shit out?
Like, yeah, like if I just
be a story.
If I just let her fly the fuck back over there, because you're right, Austin is making a very, very good point. The West is in fucking shambles. Everybody is at everybody else's neck. Cersei is in prison right now. A 9-year-old is ruling with Uncle Kevin as his hand. Stannis is freezing somewhere in the snow. You know, yeah, like really how much, who's challenging her? How much, what challenge is she really facing that she cannot handle? When you count like Dorne being behind her and possibly their army and maybe even one of these like groups of cells. She's got her own cell swords, or she did anyway. But it really wouldn't be that hard for her to take the throne. And it probably wouldn't. Right? So maybe he wrote himself into a corner. He didn't intend to write it like so snug. I don't think he meant to back himself into such a tight corner. But yeah, maybe it was just sort of like, if I let this bitch fly west now, that's just going to be over.
That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, that's, I wonder about that. That's a food for thought there. So, the woods, there's an explanation here. The woods had been allowed to encroach on the field beyond the gatehouse, so Franklin Flowers was able to use the brush for concealment and lead his men within 20 yards of the gates, before emerging from the trees with the ram they'd fashioned back at camp. The crash of wood on wood brought 2 men to the battlements. Black Balak's archers took down both of them before they could rub the sleep out of their eyes. The gate turned out to be closed, but not barred.
Listen.
It gave way at the second blow.
What is happening?
I cannot have some pride, you people. Jesus Christ.
Are they just caught so unawares, or is it just that it's been so long since they've been threatened? Like, what is happening? What is going on here?
It's just like, the fact that only two dudes show up when they start ramming and they both were clearly asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yikes. Anyway, they are able to like stop most of the ravens, but they think probably some have gone through. But Connington is not worried about that because he knows that they don't really know they didn't know who was attacking them when they started.
Yes.
So whatever messages they sent are going to kind of make no sense. And probably people aren't really going to be prepared for, somebody coming in who's like Loki an invader at this point. That is not going to be what they are thinking is happening. So even if they get news, they won't be ready. It won't matter. Griff rode up the throat on a white courser beside homeless Harry Strickland. As they neared the castle, he saw a third raven flap from the maester's tower, only to be feathered by Black Balak himself. No more messages, he told Sir Franklin Flowers in the yard. The next thing to come flying from the maester's tower was the maester. The way his arms were flapping, he might have been mistaken for another bird. That was the end of all resistance.
Jesus
I felt so bad for that maester. He's just out here trying to do his job. But, I guess that's everybody.
I guess that's everybody.
Really, everybody here is just trying to do what they gotta. So he has his men go and basically roust the entire household, and because he knows this place, he can even tell them the secret passages and stuff to look in.
Oh yeah.
I kept thinking about how I don't really know the word I want here. Shocking, I guess it would be if you knew of a secret tunnel that you were hiding in and they just opened the door almost immediately and you really thought totally secret. Nobody
knows we're here. Yeah.
That would be such a bummer. You'd really feel like you had something here. And then it's not even like you hear them pounding around trying to find a secret door. They just walk straight to it. They knew. How?
I love the confusion in that moment and then wondering if anybody that's hiding makes the connection that is a clue to who this is that's attacked them. If they connect the dots, because sometimes in the real moment of the thing, your brain isn't firing on all cylinders, so it's possible that they don't make the connection. But I'm very curious if anybody is this must be a Griffin. Only a Griffin would know, So once they get the house sort of in order, which doesn't take, there's not really a lot to it, we start getting some remembrances from Connington about his childhood, what it was like growing up here, and lots of memories of Prince Rhaegar, who he is just really smitten with. Mm-hmm. His Silver Prince, I think he calls him at one point.
Yeah, that's the one that we hear a lot.
And this of them growing up together, and you told me, I believe, that there's a theory. I don't know if George confirmed it or if it's just fan theory that Connington was actually really I jokingly said he's smitten, but he was legit in love with Prince Rhaegar.
Correct. I feel like it has been corroborated by George. But it's pretty much accepted by the fandom that he was gay and in love with Rhaegar. And
he is still Griff, all of these many years later, carrying the weight of that loss, of that death, that it was basically his fault too. Like he should have been there, but instead he was off. He's off somewhere else at the Stony Sept, I think. Is that where he is, or is that where Rhaegar and Robert?
I don't remember. I'm not going to try and pretend that I have the answer to that.
But yeah, he's remembering that, like, so Robert is like hiding in town, and Jon Connington becomes obsessed with like finding Robert so that he can take him down, like basically man kind of. Yep. I'm going to make sure I take his head, and someone tells Connington at some point that fucking Tywin, somebody's like, Tywin couldn't have done any more than you did. And somebody's like, nah. Tywin would not have even bothered searching house to house. He'd have burned that whole fucking town to the ground and not given a fuck.
He himself is the one who tries to say, even Tywin couldn't have done better. And one of his guys says to him, like, yeah, he could.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, says it to his face. And I don't know if at the time he really like agreed, but he definitely agrees now as a grown man. He's just looking back at like, I was just very preoccupied with this idea of like facing down Robert in combat, and I let that become the priority above the actual mission, and he clearly regrets that. Yep.
There's a whole bit here about it says King Aerys had named him hand and given him an army, and he had meant to prove himself worthy of that trust of Rhaegar's love. He would slay the rebel lord himself and carve a place out for himself in all the histories. Yeah, man, that fucking arrogance, that hunger for glory. Yep. And this is also tinged with like his own feelings for Prince Rhaegar and wanting to prove himself to this man, to like, look big in front of this person that he is in love with and wants to make proud.
Right.
All of that gets twisted into this ego-driven need to be the one that takes Robert's head, that takes him down. And that somehow it's not as honorable. Well, it's not, actually. It's not somehow. It's not as honorable to burn a whole fucking village of innocent people in order to hopefully get Robert, who's hiding out somewhere. There's no honor in that. Tywin is a fucking beast, y'all. Or was.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yeah, because he's like, I didn't want to be called a butcher. And like, I do get that. And I don't think that's the wrong impulse to have. Yeah. But
Tywin had no compunction about it. He could give a fuck
like,
about
call me a butcher. I hope it frightens you.
But you don't say it to my face though. Mm-hmm. Boy, he really was a long one. Tywin was fucking good. God, that.
I really wonder if there was any reciprocation of his feelings for Rhaegar.
That's interesting.
Because, like, we know that Rhaegar was really... It's sort of questionable because I want to say Rhaegar was really into... what's her name? Is it Lyanna Stark? What's...
that's her name.
I can't ever remember people's names.
That's right.
It's not clear for me if he was actually in love with her or if he pursued her due to these weird sort of prophetic dreams and stuff that he was having. And I don't remember how much we've talked about this, but it's just often mentioned when we, hear people who, when we're around people who knew Rhaegar, that he was sort of, he dealt with these melancholy visions and these like this sense of there being a greater purpose that he was destined for, but not in a way that feels like self-important. It was almost a bummer to him, it seems like.
Right.
And so I don't know, did he just go after Lyanna because that was part of fulfilling whatever he felt he needed to? Or did he really care about her? And don't know. And setting that all aside, that is not to say that he wasn't into anybody else. Even if he was into her, it's potentially, maybe he had feelings for Jon Connington, or maybe they had an affair going on. I don't think they did based on the way Jon's talking about him, but it's possible that there was a sense of something between the two of them, even if neither of them had acted on it. So I don't know. I just wonder about that sometimes, because part of me wants there to have been something reciprocated, just because Jon is so sad now that I kind of want him to get a crumb.
Right.
Yeah,
the idea of carrying on an unrequited torch for 50 years is very, very sad. And you kind of want just to lessen the sadness of it, to be like, well, maybe they had one summer, where they frolicked and then.
Oh my God. No, they did not.
I mean, why not? And this is leaning into some gender tropes and stereotypes. So, apologies in advance, but I'm going to just mention that I feel like there have been several instances over the course of the books where, some Rhaegar is described as being especially sensitive, and he plays the harp and is got a beautiful voice, and things that can kind of be coded as suggesting that there may have been, again, apologies for the stereotypes, but a femininity to him,
right.
And I don't know if those little things are peppered in to kind of give us something to be like, well, maybe there was a side to him, a softer side to him. Maybe he was bi. Maybe they did have something. But Connington is we don't spend that much time with him, but I feel like if they had ever had any treasured moments together where there was reciprocity, I feel like Jon would be reminiscing about that as well. And the fact
that's kind of why I was I don't, based on his thoughts, I don't think so. But there could have been a vibe.
Oh, I bet there was a vibe.
Yeah. And that can be even harder to let go of, is when you clearly had a vibe with somebody, but you never get to pursue it.
Oh, and the potential is cut off.
Exactly.
And cut short because, he died so young. So then you have a life of what could have beens and what ifs. And
Yep, exactly.
So, so he gets this castle back, and it's not even the best castle in his area. There's a bigger one that's down the street.
Down the street.
But they're not worried about that one.
It's really nice.
I don't know why that's so funny.
Maybe if this castle had taken their gated community more seriously,
maybe they'd be alright. Stay in fucking.
This is why I gotta take ID at the door.
Oh shit. And they have a big a feast, like a welcome home to your rightful ruler feast. And there's a couple of the people who had taken the castle were kind of family. They're related to Connington in some way. I forget exactly what the deal is. It's someone named Sir Ronnet, who was supposed to be in charge, was off fighting with Jaime Lannister somewhere, and these people that are left behind, Jon is just nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to be hostages, but the good kind.
That is basically it.
He says to them, "I'm your rightful lord, returned from exile. You've heard that I was dead, because it's got that whole thing too, like that, you need to die. A memory needs to die in disgrace with you so that you can, like, have this, this life as Griffin, or whatever his name is. What does he call himself? Does he call himself,
Old Griff?
Old Griff, right? That's his, like, alter ego, and he needs to, like, not be Jon Connington anymore. That has to die. So he's telling these people that I'm not really dead. Those were all lies. And as long as you serve me as faithfully as you serve my cousins, this is all going to be fine. And he brings everybody up, and they all, like, swear fealty to him. And then I think there's, like, some kids that he wants to, like, eat up on the dais with him. And they are just giving him what could only be described as the gas face. They are not interested. They are not interested in him.
Yeah, not a bit.
In, like, pretending that they like him, whether they're interested that he's back or anything. They're just, like, stone-faced up there with him. And then there's a thing that happens during dinner. One of the kids looks him right in the face and is like, yeah, my dad's going to kill you. So there's that.
I just love that. This kid just feels, because he's, in Jon Connington's eyes, he's like, this is almost bloodless. Like, this went as well as it could and is really feeling something, but it does not matter to these kids, which makes perfect sense.
Jon is like, all right, you know what? Back to your rooms. Back to yourselves. Oh, shit.
Let's see. Haldon Halfmaester had been absent from the feast. Lord Jon found him in the Maester's tower, bent over a pile of parchments with maps spread out all around him. Hoping to determine where the rest of the company might be, Connington asked him, "Would that I could, my lord." 10,000 men had sailed from Volantheris with all their weapons, horses, elephants. Not quite half that number had turned up thus far on Westeros.
Yeah, this is no good.
Yikes.
Yeah. No good at all. It's, like, really lucky that they were able to take the castle so easily, because the reinforcements that are on their way are not, like, on the way.
The reinforcements aren't reinforcing. Only a few years ago, he would have never dared attempt a landing on Cape Wrath. The Stormlords were too fiercely loyal to House Baratheon and to King Robert. But with both Robert and his brother Renly slain, everything was changed. Stannis was too harsh and cold a man to inspire much in the way of loyalty. Even if he had not been half a world away, and the Stormlands had little reason to love House Lannister. And Jon Connington was not without his own friends here. Some of the older lords will remember me, and their sons will have heard the stories, and every man of them will know of Rhaegar and his young son whose head was smashed against a cold stone wall. I can't decide if he is right about this. He's very, very confident. He's like, they'll all have heard the stories. What if nobody's telling stories about you? What if it's just not really on anybody's radar the way that you think it is, because you lived it and it's a memory that you go through mentally like every goddamn second of the day?
I mean,
just a thought.
The whole point of his disappearance is that no one is supposed to remember him fondly, and have reasons to tell stories of him. And I thought he was aware of that, and understood it. But this surprised me. I don't know. The people that he's thinking of, they would have to be, few and far between, because he's thinking they would be Targaryen loyalists. But if they survived, they would have to have pretended to bend the knee to Robert.
Right.
And so much time has passed, and now, like he's saying, Robert and Renly are both dead, and I don't know. I think, and I don't have a lot to base this on, but I think he might be overstating his reputation and his renown a little bit.
That's kind of how I feel about it. And I may be wrong, like I really may be, but it just felt like he really took it for granted in a way that I was not prepared to do at all.
Yeah.
And it really is sort of like how vain isn't the only word, but I also don't think it's an incorrect word, because there is something about him that feels vain. It's just not in the aesthetic sort of sense that we usually mean that word.
He's got a little bit of like a self-righteousness to him.
Yeah.
And pride. Yeah. Yeah, not vain and like, aren't I the bee's knees? Have you seen me? Like, not that kind of vanity. No. But sort of, my mission and what I have sacrificed over these years to a greater cause, a cause so great most of you aren't even aware of it. You know what I mean? Elevates me. Like, that kind of vibe,
Yeah.
A sort of self-important.
That was what I was sort of teetering on the edge of saying, is like self-importance. There's even almost like, a lot of his thoughts, it feels to me, tend to be like a little contemptuous of the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
He even mentions earlier, like, how he, along with like most fighters, held Bowman in contempt until he like saw for himself how valuable a good archer was.
Right.
And I know that that's like, talking about a specific thing and not necessarily a descriptor of his whole personality, but sure. I feel as if saying like, well, me and a lot of other guys felt the same way. And it's the sort of, again, did they? Or do you think they all feel this way because you do that thing that we all do where we think we're all on the same page with other people in our opinions, because we haven't really bothered to like get other people's opinions.
Yeah. And people aren't in a position to be necessarily honest with us because you hold a degree of privilege over them. So they can't just always tell you that they think you're full of shit or that they think you might have gotten it wrong. Fucking this Maester and these goddamn elephants, you guys.
Oh my God, this was cracking me up. He is really
pressed about these elephants.
Which, like, I would also be, but for very different reasons. I don't know. Actually, I say that, and maybe my reasons aren't so different. Maybe he is somebody who's just like, well, the poor elephants. Where are they? I'm sure this is like a bummer. But he's trying to sort of frame it as like, we need them for battle. And Jon is just like, we fought plenty of battles with elephants. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Right. Like, yeah, they would have been great, but we fought without them and we've been okay, Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fine. Do you have anything else that's actually useful? And this is when he gives them a little bit of the skinny about what's been going on in Westeros. And we find out, well, we already knew this, but he's hipping him to Cersei and Marjorie fighting. The Tyrells and the Lannister alliance is fraying at the edges. Tyrell has abandoned his siege at Storm's End to go back to save his daughter in King's Landing. There's only a token force left behind to keep Stannis' men at Storm's End pinned up in the castle. It talks about the Boltons are holding the Riverlands. The Freys and the Boltons do not have stellar reputations.
No.
Baratheon Stannis remains in open rebellion, and also the Ironborn are wilding. I don't know if you heard about that, but yeah. And then this line, which fucking cracked me up because it caught me so off guard, and I was like, you know what? You're right. And it's just a simple fucking line. It's just, no one ever seems to mention the veil.
He's right.
I laughed so fucking hard at that. I cannot even tell you guys. I laughed so goddamn hard because he is 100% right, and I just could picture George Martin kind of giggling to himself as he was saying that sentence. It's just, no one ever seems to mention the veil. And then it follows it up with, which suggests to me that the Aarons have taken no part in any of this. But yeah, I was that, and plus it's been a minute since we've heard anything from the veil. But we do know that Peter, has got all kinds of things in play.
Yes.
But they're so like, I abhor the saying like someone's playing 3D chess. I don't like any chess analogies, actually. I don't like he's playing chess, not checkers. I don't like that they're playing 3D chess. I might have beef with chess. I'm gonna think about that off
She's
mic.
gonna investigate this with her therapist.
Right, I'm gonna bring it up. I just find those expressions like really tiresome. But the reason I bring it up is because we know that Baelish is really doing that, though. Like, he's playing so many different games all at once on so many different levels with so many different people. And it's all flying very much under the radar of these other people who are very loud about their plans. Everybody else is squawking around the yard, flapping like chickens. And Baelish, you know what I mean? And Baelish is just kind of like not
doing in the shadows.
Yeah. But that line cracked me up. And then they start talking about
I feel like if Peter were here and like heard him saying nobody ever seems to he would be so gratified.
Absolutely.
He's so happy.
100%. He'd be like, and that is by design, my friend.
Mm-hmm. God, that is funny. I'm glad you pointed that out because that did not hit for me.
Oh my God.
It should have. By this time on the morrow, we ought to hold 3 castles, he said. The force that had taken Griffin's Roost represented a quarter of their available strength. Sir Tristan Rivers had set off simultaneously for the seat of House Morrigan at Crow's Nest, and Laswell Peak for Rain House, the stronghold of the Wilds, each with a force of comparable size. The rest of their men had remained in camp to guard their landing site and Prince under the command of the company's Volantine paymaster Goris Edorian, I think. Their numbers would continue to swell, one hoped. More ships were straggling in every day. We still have too few horses. And no elephants, the half-beast reminded him. Horses can be found in Westeros. Elephants do not matter. The great beasts would be useful in pitched battle, no doubt, but it would be some time before they had the strength to face their foes in the field. And that hadn't occurred to me. They're doing everything real stealthy right now. So, yeah, elephants don't lend themselves to stealth.
They really do not.
That's not their purview. So, yeah, makes sense.
There's a whole bit, too, when I start talking about Dorne, and they are talking about the youngest son being engaged to Myrcella, and that it says, which was suggested the Dornishmen had been thrown in with the House Lannister, but they also have an army in the Boneway and another in Prince's Pass just waiting. And Connington is like, waiting for what? Without Daenerys and her dragons, Dorne was central to their hopes. So he's like, you know what? Let's write to Sunspear. Tell Doran that his sister's son is still alive and has come home to claim his father's throne. And I said, "Oh, word! We're doing that. We're just gonna do it now. It's happening now."
Yeah, this I really wonder what Dorne's response is going to be here because, their whole thing was Daenerys, even though a lot of people didn't realize it, but that was the ongoing plan. But they don't know what's going on with Quentyn at all. Mm-hmm. As far as we know, I'm not sure if word of Quentyn showing up and talking to Daenerys has reached them. I suppose it's possible. But, if they have heard that he's okay, they've also heard that he was refused. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, will they just be like, all right, well, I guess Daenerys is out, so why don't we do this? I don't know. Or will they be like, Daenerys is the deal we made and you're going to fuck it up and we don't want any of this? Like, it could go a lot of different ways depending on how they're feeling about their own position.
Yeah, his idea is to offer Aegon's hand to, I'm assuming, what's Doran's daughter's name?
Oh my God.
Well, her.
One.
Yeah, her.
Yeah. Arianne.
Yes.
Arianne Martell, right?
So that's kind of what his plan is. He doesn't say her name though, but he says, we do have one prize to offer Prince Aegon's hand, a marriage alliance to bring some great house to our banners. But so let's think for a second. Say Prince Aegon marries Arianna. Quentyn marries Daenerys. Who gets to rule? Who's in charge?
That's a good question.
No, this is like I'm asking like a question of succession. Like, how does that work? Does it go from Prince Rhaegar to Rhaegar's son, or would it go to Daenerys as the sister, as the daughter of the?
I think a man is always going to get preference.
Well, yes. Well, yeah. House of Dragon showed us that, didn't it? But but if we went by the rules of succession without like the interference and the bias, so you have King Aerys.
I think it would be his son.
But Rhaegar was never king. He was only ever prince. Right?
True.
So does the rightful ruler, so you think you have the king, you have Aerys, then you got Rhaegar, and you have Daenerys. Rhaegar dies before he can become king. So then it goes to the next child of the sitting king, which would be Daenerys, I would think. But I have no idea if that's how that shit works.
I don't think so.
You think it goes Prince?
I really do think it goes like Prince and then Prince, for lack of a better way of saying that.
Prince Square. The
Prince to the 10th power. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, everybody. It's been a wild ride. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, God. But yeah, like that, I definitely assume that it would feel to most people like, and not only the just succession in the basic terms, but I also just feel like Rhaegar was so beloved that
true.
A child of his would just, there would be a real sentimental thing going on there.
Because nobody knows Daenerys, right?
Yeah.
There's so he's got the benefit of having a reputation, having his father, a father's reputation that he can lean on, and her father's reputation is not great. So, then we get.
I just do want to remind us all too that there is a very strong theory with a lot of evidence that this dude is not Rhaegar's son.
Yeah. Agreed.
We know this, but nobody else is aware of it, and he has been set up pretty well here. So we're operating on just if everybody believes he is who he says.
And then we get into Connington thinking about Elia
Martell, yeah.
He was not a fan. He was not a fan at all. She was never worthy of him. She was frail and sickly from the first, and after childbirth only left her weaker. This hoe rolled up in this raggedy hoe, he might as well call her.
Oh, God. Why does Raggedy always crack me up so
I don't know, but you always laugh whenever I use
it. Is so funny.
I don't know why white people don't use Raggedy the same way black people use Raggedy. When white people use Raggedy, it's usually, like, very literal.
Very literal.
You know? As opposed to the way we use it, which is just like a descriptor for all types of behavior.
Yeah, I was, I can't remember what page I was seeing this from. I feel like it might have been Uppity Negress. But she points out like how many insults in the Black community are based on like personal hygiene.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's just like not really as much of a thing in the white community. Like we'll throw those kinds of insults out, but it isn't like the go-to, you know? And just like, interesting. Interesting.
Well,
we don't wash our legs.
I didn't want to say the thing. I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say shit about it. Wasn't going to do it.
That's what I'm here for, RoShawn. That's what I'm here for.
But you hurt my well, and then I just trailed off and didn't say anything else.
Yep. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, just Google, do white people wash their legs? And you'll fall down a rabbit hole. I promise you. And it's very interesting. And RoShawn and I have had this conversation ourselves. And I believe she was unsatisfied with my answers. So, yeah, you know, there it is.
There's this the thing too is that it's all jokes and it's fun and you know it's in good fun and whatever. But there is a because racism ruins everything and is also at the root of everything. There is such a stigma and a stereotype that Black people are the ones who are unclean, right? Mm-hmm. We're dirty. So there's sort of a hyper vigilance in my experience. I can only speak for myself and my generation of you never want to be caught being dirty, right? You don't ever let them catch you being dirty. Mm-hmm. So you're always bathed, you're always lotioned up, you know, you shouldn't just like try to smell good. Now, again, talking in very broad, general terms, there are all kinds of people who stink, but the focus on when you're a child, like, you know, I have memories of, you know, like if my clothes were dirty, like having to change clothes, being out in public looking, again, raggedy, unacceptable, because, you know, I saw this thing, I didn't watch a whole thing, but somebody was talking about the expression. It was like, if, you know, how many people had parents say something like this to them when they were little, and the phrase was basically like, don't embarrass me in front of these white people. Which was a very common refrain when I was little in like my peer group. Don't act up, don't show out in front of these white people, you know, don't act a fool in front of these white people. And there are all kinds of different reasons for that, ranging from having to represent an entire race, which is, you know, like Black people aren't afforded individualism in the way that white people are under the systems of way white supremacy operates, or what I heard somebody recently call white supremacy. They called it white superiority disorder, and I am in love with that. I am in love with that. I wish I could remember. I wish I could shout out the creator who said that. I can't remember who it was, but the idea too that if you are seen acting out in front of white people, that could endanger your family. Like maybe like social services could be involved. You know, there's all kinds of things that go into the sort of preoccupation with making sure that you are clean and presentable at all times. And for a lot of white people, they didn't have to operate under those same conditions, so they could just be out here doing whatever. And one of the things they were doing was not washing their legs in the shower for reasons.
Yep.
I mean, that whole washing your legs in the shower morphed into a how many times did you take a bath when you were a kid conversation. And that was wild because people were saying they only took a bath once a week when they were kids.
Wow.
There's like bath night. You took a bath once a week.
That's definitely not the case for me. Like...
And this is like an older generation of white people. Like my generation and older. So I think that might be like out of
I wonder too, like, because, you're talking about the stigma and trying to avoid filling the stereotype. And I also wonder about my father and if that was part of the thing, because it was like such a major thing in his family to bathe a lot and to wear a lot of like cologne. And I remember one time that I slept overnight at my abuela's house, and I didn't realize that basically everybody in the house was horrified that I woke up and had breakfast and hung out in my room and read, and that the first thing I did wasn't just immediately get up and take a shower. Like, they were all just like talking about it with each other around me, and I didn't realize it until like later that was what was, everybody was sort of like whispering, like, did she not shower? What is she doing? And then when I did, the relief of everybody in the house was like, okay, now we can carry on with our scheduled plans. It was so weird. So,
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if if this is something that's, sort of cross-cultural among peoples of color once they are here, like in the States or any kind of like majority white country, wherever they end up. The burden of being a representative,
it's very tiresome.
It's no fun. It's not a good time. And that every action of yours can then be lobbied against an entire community, and it doesn't really, even when we try to make it a thing, you notice it doesn't stick. Like, no matter how many times we talk about mass shooters or family annihilators or serial killers and what those demographics consistently are, that doesn't stick.
Nope.
You still don't look at a white man and assume any of those things. Those aren't the first things that pop into your head. It just doesn't seem to work in reverse.
It's the closest I have come to that feeling is being fat. And feeling like I have eyes on me as like the fat person in any given situation. But that is such a changeable characteristic.
Right.
It's a really weird sort of dynamic with that.
And it's an identity that exists in the margins, even though there's more of us that are fat than not. But it's still somehow a sort of a marginal. It becomes, when you're fat, you get pushed to the margins. You're no longer centered. You know what I mean? And once you start to exist in those margins, you'll start to experience some of these other, things that other communities experience. They start to like kind of travel on over to your side of the room.
Why don't you mosey on down?
God, I don't even know how.
What?
How did we end up there?
You called him raggedy.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
Listen, welcome to Unspoiled. So let's see. Here it is. We could scarcely have timed our landing better. We have potential friends and allies at every hand, but no dragons, said Jon Connington. So to win these allies to our cause, we must needs have something to offer them. And this is when the prince is brought up. And he's like, Aegon has to be free to marry Daenerys, which, I don't know if that will work. Like, she is conscious enough of appearance, and caring about that is like, just obviously does play a factor for her. And he's meant to be somewhat attractive. So they've got that going for them. But will she see him as just sheer competition and be like, why would I try and bind myself to you when your claim might be seen as better than mine?
Listen, this is what I think. I think that's so hardcore that I forgot that the plan was to marry Aegon to Daenerys, and I'm out here talking about marrying her to Doran's daughter. Because I keep forgetting that, Like, it just does not compute in my brain, because why would Daenerys why would she agree to this?
Yeah.
Why? Why would this be something she would do? Yeah, it just seems like it would put her in a position to have to jockey for power. I mean, granted, she has dragons. Aegon don't have no dragons.
He don't.
Oh my God, if they meet and he tries to get up on a dragon and a dragon is like, bitch, what? And then the whole cover is blown. Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be really interesting if like that were the litmus test that really like gets him.
Right? Since we were talking about it earlier, like whether or not the bloodline really means, what it means. How funny would that be?
Oopsies. We might consider offering potential friends a lesser prize. What would you suggest? You are unwed, a great lord, still virile with no heirs except these cousins we've just now dispossessed, the scion of an ancient house with a fine, stout castle and wide, rich lands that will no doubt be restored and perhaps expanded by a grateful king once we've triumphed. You have name as a warrior, and as Aegon's hand, you will speak with his voice and rule this realm in all but name. I would think that many an ambitious lord might be eager to wed his daughter to such a man, even perhaps the Prince of Dorne. Jon Connington's answer was a long, cold stare. There were times when the half-maester vexed him almost as much as the dwarf had. I think not.
That is not a good enough answer to this very wise counsel. Mm-hmm. There is all right. I'm not saying there are no holes in his plan, because there's a lot of things that are unknown, yet. We don't know if they're going to be successful. We don't know if Aegon is going to actually, get Daenerys and blah, 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 blah. But we're just spitballing here. And there's nothing wrong with this suggestion here. This is actually fairly well thought out. He's making some good points. And the best that Jon Connington can do is, nah. And then has the nerve to be, like, irritated.
Yeah. Like, this dude, like, he annoys me as much because he's right. Is that what it is? Maybe that is what it is. Maybe it's because he knows that this is, like, a sensible suggestion that bothers him as much as anything.
I think it does, because he references Tyrion and vexed him almost as much as the dwarf had, and I think that is because Tyrion also made lots of like very sensible suggestions that were just kind of annoying to Jon Connington.
Yeah, I feel like this does sort of like dovetail with my interpretation of him as being contemptuous of a lot of people as well. Mm-hmm. Just this sort of like, how dare you say anything to me, But then in his brain, he's just like, it's the grayscale. Death is creeping up my arm, and no one must know. No man must know. Yeah, also, it's a real...
Also no wife.
Real convenient sort of scapegoat.
So, we get, what else do we have going on in this chapter? Some breakfast.
He asks for the worst wine so that he can wash his hand.
Yeah.
Because what they think helps is vinegar.
And that's too suspicious to ask for.
Yeah, I can't be just being like, you bring me a gallon of vinegar each morning. No reason. But it's like not really clear if the wine does anything. Like, it doesn't seem to. And I really wonder how much time he has before this begins to be a problem.
His disease is spreading. It says, his fingernails are starting to turn black. He's wearing gloves all the time. And he has a little moment where he's just like, as weird as it may sound, men who gleefully, run out to meet their death on a battlefield get like strangely squeamish when it comes to this disease. So he knows that he can't let anybody else know that he has grayscale.
Yeah.
And then he's like, fucking, it's like, I should have let that fucking dwarf drown. Like, God damn it.
I forgot about that. Yeah, considering like everything with Tyrion not getting, he didn't get the grayscale, he didn't get the pale mare. He has really gotten quite lucky.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually very interesting. And I don't know if there's anything to be made of that. But the fact that Tyrion continues to be exposed to these, what are supposed to be highly infectious diseases, and yet remains not impacted. I don't know, not infected. I don't know if I'm supposed to make anything of that, or if that is just like a nothing burger, or just like good luck on his part, or if that's supposed to be saying something to me. And I know there's all kinds of like weird mythology around the Targaryens, but like, I don't know if there's anything around them about, like, I know they can get sick, because I know that from fucking watching Jaehaerys get all sliced the fuck up on a goddamn throne. So it's not that they're impervious to illness, but it is very interesting that Tyrion doesn't seem to get sick, even though he keeps being in close proximity to these very contagious diseases.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I feel like there's a point at which Daenerys thinks to herself, like, oh yeah, Targaryens don't get sick, and like the evidence does not agree with
right?
her at all. So, you know, it's something that she has said, but I don't believe is meant to be taken seriously. It's just sort of part of her
arrogance,
like family mythology, like this weird preoccupation with the holding of the Targaryen name as like more than human, you know? But yeah, when it comes to Tyrion, I don't know, are they meant to be just like more resistant and not immune? Like, is there a kernel of truth in the thing?
I mean, because
none at all.
We do have Daenerys being, you know, ministering to people who are suffering from the flux. You know, she's kind of like in it for a minute, and also does not get sick. And I know that there's that whole like theory that Tyrion, you know, is possibly a Targaryen. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of like loose connection, like that we're supposed to be having happen in the back of our heads, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fucking, I'm so
What?
sorry. I'm just getting to the part now where they're talking about his war council, and fucking somebody is like, Eastermount was an island off of Cape Wrath, never one of their objectives. The damn Volantines are so eager to be rid of us, they're dumping us ashore on any bit of land they see. I'll wager you that we've got lads scattered all over the bloody stepstones, too. With my elephants, Harry Strickland said in a mournful tone. He missed his elephants, did homeless Harry.
Oh, bless
This
him.
is a very unserious chapter, y'all.
It's funny to say that about a character who is like kind of too serious, but it is true. It is unintentionally. Let's see. Do we know if Greenstone got off any ravens before it fell? I expect they did, but what messages would they have carried? At best, some garbled account of raiders from the sea. Send word to Mandrake to leave a garrison behind and bring the rest of his men over to Cape Wrath along with any noble captives. As you command, my lord. House Estermont has blood ties to both kings, as it happens. Good hostages. Good ransoms, said homeless Harry happily. It's time we sent for Prince Aegon as well, Lord Jon announced. He will be safer here behind the walls of Griffin's Roost than back at camp. I'll send a rider, but the lad won't much like the idea of staying safe, I tell you that. He wants to be in the thick of things. So did we all at his age, Lord Jon thought, remembering. And that does indeed turn out to be a bit of an issue at the end of the chapter.
It really does.
The boy is just like, let me lead the charge. And I don't know how you convince him that's the worst possible idea.
I mean, he is at that age now where he is like really bucking authority and is tired of being pushed behind. He's tired of being sent someplace safe. Like we saw that ourselves in the last book or earlier in this book, when they were all still on the ship together. He is getting harder and harder to make him obey. He is starting to really feel the princiness of himself, and when they bring him back, he's just like, they have a plan, right? They're gonna storm something. And
I'm trying to find the spot here. Let's see. Let King's Landing think this is no more than an exile lord coming home with some hired swords, an old familiar story. I'll even write King Tommen, stating as much, and asking for a pardon and the restoration of my lands and titles. That will give them something to chew over for a while. And whilst they dither, I will send out word secretly to likely friends in the Stormlands and the Reach and Dorne. Above all else, we must have Doran Martell. And Strickland says, the Dornishman is scared of his own shadow, not what you'd call daring. And he thinks no more than you. He's cautious. He won't join unless he is convinced, so we must persuade him. And Strickland says, we control so much of the Cape. We should wait and gather our power. And Connington gave the plump Captain General a cool look. This man is no Blackheart, no Bittersteel, no Malus. He would wait until all 7 hells were frozen over if he could, rather than risk another bout of blisters. He really hates this guy.
He really does not like hardly anybody.
We did not cross half the world to wait. Our best chance is to strike hard and fast before King's Landing knows who we are. I mean to take Storm's End, a nigh impregnable stronghold and Stannis Baratheon's last foothold in the south. Once taken, it will give us a secure fastness to which we may retreat at need, and winning it will prove our strength. The captains of the Golden Company exchanged glances. If Storm's End is still held by men loyal to Stannis, we will be taking it from him, not the Lannisters. Why not make common cause with him against the Lannisters? And he says, Stannis is Robert's brother of that same ilk that brought down House Targaryen. So he is still sort of like holding on to this. That just feels very silly to me at this point.
I mean, I think that I think that if this were a conversation that Stannis was having, Stannis would say the exact same thing about Jon Connington.
Agreed.
He'd be like, I can't fucking make peace with him. He supported House Targaryen and fought against my brother and, blah, 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 blah. Like, they are, it's not that they're similar, Stannis and Jon Connington, but they both have a certain
rigidity to them.
They absolutely do. They both have a certain rigidity. They both have a certain, to the point that you made earlier, a sort of contempt for the people around them, and a sort of, like I said earlier, a self-righteousness. Yeah, they definitely have some things in common. I won't go as far as saying like two sides of the same coin, but there are some things where it's like Spider-Man meme,
It's funny. We're now beginning to talk in pictograms, guys. We're regressing, and I love it. I'm here for it. If Storm's End is so impregnable, how do you mean to take it? By guile. We should wait. We shall. 10 days. No longer. It will take that long to prepare. On the morning of the 11th day, we ride for Storm's End. So, here comes the prince. There's a guy ahead of him, Raleigh Duckfield. A solid man and true, but not worthy of the King's Guard. He had tried his best to dissuade the prince from giving Duckfield that cloak, pointing out that the honor might be best held in reserve for warriors of greater renown, whose fealty would add luster to their cause, and the younger sons of great lords whose support they would need in the coming struggle, but the boy would not be moved. Duck will die for me if need be, and that's all I require in my Kingsguard. The Kingslayer was a warrior of great renown and the son of a great lord as well. Which I do sort of like he's throwing that in his face a little bit, because that's his whole way of looking at everything. So,
like, I know some fancy ass people that turned out not to be worth shit as far as being a King's Guard. So what do you got to say about that? Meanwhile, Jamie just catching strays. Like, this not even his chapter.
Jamie saved King's Landing, but just never gonna escape that. So young Griff says, Lord Connington, I like your castle. Your father's lands are beautiful, he said. His silvery hair was blowing in the wind, and his eyes were a deep purple darker than this boy's. Jon.
He got it bad.
Baby, you gotta let it go, sweetie. He's dead. It's over. It's over. Just move on. Nah, can't.
Nope. And that's really tragic. It's he's low key still fighting the same battle from 40 years ago or however long it's been. He's still so stuck and mired in his past failing, which is why he cannot fail this time, because he literally cannot abide another failure. And the princess Connington, I'm sorry, not the prince, tries to dismiss is his name Duckfield? Duckfield tries to dismiss him from the room, and the prince is like, no, he can stay. And the earlier Connington had just been like, this young Prince Aegon is not nearly as biddable as the boy young Griff had been. He's just dealing with an entirely different animal at this point. And so Aegon has been brought up to speed about the attack on Storm's Inn. Strickland and Flowers just ran and told all the business.
I swear to God, Jon is so pissed, and
he's so angry. He really should be.
What is wrong with you? 10 days is plenty of time for word to start getting out. Why would you just say this?
I have no idea. And I don't know if it's because now that he's Prince Aegon, people feel like they owe him more loyalty than they do Jon Connington at this point. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if Aegon was like, tell me everything that I missed. And they were like, okay. I have no idea why they would do this. It makes zero sense. But Jon is pissed, and he's right to be pissed. And he says, well, did Harry try to persuade you to delay it? And Aegon is like, you know what? He did actually, but I'm not gonna. Harry's an old maid, isn't he? You have the right of it. I want the attack to go ahead with one change. I mean to lead it. He's out here doing big things. Making big moves. So, yeah.
I don't know why. I'm already tired, though. I don't want to watch this argument. I hope that, when we return to this, plot line, we jump ahead and it's just, the attack.
Oh, that's what it's got to be.
We don't actually see the argument or anything. I don't want to do it.
I'm assuming that if next time we see them, it'll be the day of the attack, if we see them again at all. I'm not interested in the back and forth at this point either. Jon Connington is going to have to figure out a different way to manage Aegon now that he is Prince Aegon in the open. He's going to have to figure some shit out. And if he's doing this thing where he's looking at this young man and comparing him to his supposed father, Rhaegar, and Aegon is clearly falling short of that comparison, even though all he did was say his eyes weren't as dark. But, that was very loaded. It was very much like, you might look a little like him, but you ain't him, you know. I'm not interested in the argument. I'm interested in what happens at the battle. I don't see Jon winning the argument anyway. So
Agree.
What's the point of it, of like watching it?
If he did win the argument, it would cost him something that we would have to see. Like, you know, I feel like it would be something that fundamentally shifted in his relationship with Aegon.
Yeah, he would have to really emasculate Aegon and like knock him down a few pegs, which is not necessarily good for your long-term plan of raising him up as king. So, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, Jon is in a real delicate position. You can't continue to treat him like a child and in front of other people and then expect these people to follow Aegon as their true king, you know?
Yeah.
And also, if you're loyal to the crown, if you're loyal to the Targaryens and you're loyal to Prince Aegon and Aegon gives you a direct command, you kind of gotta follow it because those are the rules of your universe. So, like, it's know, what can he really do? So, what I think happens is Aegon maybe tries to lead the battle, but is ill prepared.
Okay.
And if we see it, like if we actually do get that, maybe it doesn't go great. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I just know that Aegon has not really been tested yet. So you don't know how somebody's going to perform until they're actually in it, you know, in the mix for real. And I don't know. Maybe he balks, maybe he freezes, maybe he makes some bad calls, or maybe he surprises me and is a natural born leader and inspires like confidence and loyalty from everyone who sees him in action. I'm very, very curious to see which direction it goes in.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Well. Yeah, so I can believe, but yeah, we still managed to get an hour and 42 minutes out of these, like, really relatively short chapters in comparison to a lot of the rest of the book.
Well, if it's one thing we're going to do, we're going to yammer.
We're going to yammer. Indeed. So I feel like I want to just mention to everybody the plan that RoShawn and I have is we are going to cover House of the Dragon and interrupt our coverage of the book. And I know it is frustrating because we are so close to the end, but I am trying to just, you know, capture the zeitgeist of the show. And I just think it will be really good for our getting noticed if we gotta have our finger on the pulse, guys. And I just cannot and I'll take, you know, a little bit of the hit for this, as much as I'd like to be able to add an additional show recording. I simply can't at this time. Yeah,
like I can't. We would have to add a show to my week, and I just can't. I can't right now. So we had to choose one. So I'm sorry, but you know, I bet you be going through some things.
The book has been sitting for 15 years. It'll keep for another couple of months. And yeah, I also wanted to say that I am thinking about, and I'm not totally sure how I'm going to pull this off because of like the way that my timing works for also Spoil Me and whatnot. But RoShawn and I, we right now are recording on Saturdays. And probably we will have to go back to Saturdays, but for House of the Dragon, we're going to try and record Mondays instead so that it's like a really fresh topic by the time we talk about it, because it was kind of hard before when we were a whole week behind by the time we recorded. We would be recording the night before they dropped the next episode.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't drop our coverage until
a new
episodes late.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I'm going to try and see if I can manage to edit earlier and drop the episodes on like Wednesday instead, maybe, or Tuesday. Like, I'm going to try and see. The thing that I keep getting sort of caught up on is I want to drop them early for patrons and then drop them a couple days later publicly. But if we're recording on Monday, I already drop on Tuesday for patrons for Song of Ice and Fire. So, I just have to figure out like how much it matters to just temporarily not give my patrons such a head start. Maybe people don't care. But yeah, just sort of toying with that idea because I just really do want the conversation to still be fresh when we're having it. So yeah, just some things to think about, y'all. And I want to say thank you to everybody who donated to the Trevor Project fundraiser that I was doing. I posted on the Patreon about. I raised $600 and I had an original goal of $500. So that was really nice to be able to get more than that. So thank you so much to everybody who contributed. Really, really appreciate it. A good way to start off Pride Month. And I think that's about everything. I was going to mention on Sobers, I got one later today that I'm talking about parades with Chris Tex. You and I haven't decided on our Unsober topic for this month. We have to figure something out.
Yeah, we do.
So we'll talk about it.
Parades is good, too.
What?
Parades is a good topic, too.
I'll do parades part 1, parades part 2. How much could I have to say about parades? Can't even think of anything.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you again so much for listening. We love you very much. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.